If you want to plant an edible garden once and enjoy the benefits of that garden for many years to come, this video is for you. Hi, my name is Brittany. I run Quarter Acre Roots, where we talk about growing a lot on a little bit of space, and today we are talking about one of my favorite topics, which is perennial fruits and vegetables. Summer vegetables like tomatoes and cucumbers are fun. I love them. I grow a lot of them, but there is nothing better than buying something once and enjoying it for many years, sometimes even decades. I follow this account on Instagram. I love her, Tony at Tony Farmer's Garden. And she did a series recently on permaculture friendly plants in her yard that are essentially like perennial edibles. That got me thinking I would love to do a tour of everything that we have added to our yard, since I'm incorporating more and more permaculture design principles into our small space since getting permaculture design certified. So thank you for the inspiration, Tony. As a reminder, I am in Maryland Zone 7A. These will probably be perennial for a wide variety of growing zones, but look them up and definitely check based on what your growing zone is and what your local climate is to see if these things will be a good fit for your garden. Asparagus has got to be one of my very favorite things to grow in the garden. We eat a lot of asparagus, and when we first converted this like big 15 by 15 patch of grass to 3 long garden beds, 2 specifically for asparagus, we weren't sure how many bare root crowns to order, and I'm pretty sure the website said order 10 bare root crowns for every asparagus loving adult. So we have 20 asparagus plants in our backyard. When we put this area in, this was all grass, so we ended up digging up these long trenches here so that we could plant the asparagus appropriately. When you plant asparagus, you want to have long trenches, and then when you put the bare root crowns into the ground, you want to build them up on like kind of a hill so that this is the very center of the crown, and then the bare roots will kind of spill over the edge of the hills. I think we're early April now, and we have been harvesting for about a week now. We have already harvested 2 pounds of asparagus, but a trick with asparagus is if you get more than you can eat, you can cut it and stick it in a cup of water in the refrigerator to help keep it fresh for a little bit longer than if you like just had it in a bag or a bowl or something. A couple things you want to keep in mind when you're growing asparagus: you want to put it in somewhere that gets full sun, and you want to give it plenty of space, because as you can see here, it doesn't take up that much room when the spears are just starting to pop out of the ground. But after about 2 months of picking, you want to make sure that you have enough space to let the spears fern out. So what that essentially means is when you're picking the asparagus plant, when you're picking spears that look like this, these are really the immature parts of the plant. So you're going to snap these off and eat them. When you let these grow taller, you will notice that they will start to fern out, and that process is so that the plant can replenish the energy in the root system so that over the winter it will stay alive, and then in the spring it will resprout and give you plenty of new asparagus next year. So asparagus is going to be a bit of a waiting game. This is our 3rd year, I think, with our asparagus patch here. And this is the first year that I have picked like with absolutely no regard for if I'm over picking or not. Typically when you get bare root crowns, they're already about a year old. So that gives you a jump start than if you were starting your asparagus from seed. If you're starting your asparagus from seed, you're going to wait obviously like another year or 2 longer. That said, I do have a female plant that produces seeds. So I saved a bunch of seeds and I started them last year. I gave my mom some baby asparagus plants. She planted them last summer, and this year they are already roaring back to life. They are producing some beautiful asparagus spears that are pretty similar to what ours were producing the first year, starting from bare root crowns. So it'll be interesting to follow her journey with asparagus from seed and how quickly that gives her something that she can harvest and eat. Another thing to know about asparagus is that it is super early. Again, we're early April and we've been picking for about a week. So I have some other things mixed in here. I have a couple of A-frame trellises with some sugar snap peas, just to help with some nitrogen fixing for the soil. And then I have some early season greens and radishes between a lot of these, because what I ended up finding out last year was that I put strawberries between each of these plants. So I had all this space in here that I had strawberry plants in, and they did really great up until the ferns just got way too crazy. And then I found that it was shading out the strawberries way too much. So I know a lot of people do grow strawberries between their asparagus plants, but I just did not find that to be a good pairing for us. This year, once the asparagus starts ferning out, I'm going to try and stretch out some of my like early season greens like lettuce and spinach that typically will start to bolt and get too hot, because I'm hoping the shade from those ferns will give me a little bit of extra time to grow some of those less heat tolerant greens as the temperatures start rising. So let's talk about strawberries now. This whole green stalk vertical garden has strawberries planted in it this year. All of these were bare root plants that I ordered. These are all everbearing strawberries. Now, an everbearing variety is going to give you fewer berries for a longer longer period of time. So like pick a berry here, pick a berry there all summer. June bearing varieties, which I have some of in another green stalk on the other side of the yard, and I have around some of my trees in the back. Those will give you a larger harvest of berries earlier in the season around June, which is why they're called June bearing. No matter what type of strawberry you're growing, they are going to propagate themselves and spread readily. That is how the plant stays alive. They throw out runners that just look like little stems. They have a little growth point on them. The growth point will root itself in the soil and then sprout leaves and create another plant. It's super easy to dig those up if you need to thin out your strawberry patch, or if they just pop up in an undesirable area, or if you just want to share them with friends or put them elsewhere. I have some strawberry plants that I dug up from my mom's yard. She got one of those hanging baskets of strawberries. It spilled over and then it ended up spreading all around an area in her backyard, and now she has a beautiful strawberry patch that kind of accidentally planted itself. So that tells you how aggressively strawberries can spread. This could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on where you put them. Just something to keep in mind. And since I showed you growing them here in my yellow green stalk, I will show you the other green stalk. I have them in here up on the patio. These are actually the plants that I dug up from my mom's yard, so they are looking a lot more mature. They already have some flowers on them, so we're hoping we get some nice berries from these. Strawberries also make a really great living mulch in fruit tree guilds. So right here we have our peach tree that I have pulled the mulch out from around and planted to build out this guild this year. So over there I have a yarrow, I have a coneflower, I have a black-eyed Susan, and then all over here I have planted some bare root strawberries that have started sprouting. So my goal is to just kind of let these strawberry plants spread in this area to create a nice living mulch to help to shade out the soil for this peach tree here. Now, strawberries also make a really great addition below your fruit trees because they have a very shallow root system. They're not going to go down and interfere with your tree's roots. It's a really good idea not to plant a lot of things too close to fruit trees when they're really young and establishing their roots, because you don't want them to have to compete with anything. But strawberries have just such a shallow root system that they make a great partner to add into your planting groups. It is currently spring break here in Maryland, and that means I have not only my daughter, but two of her friends over. So you may hear a couple rogue screams or mommies in the background, but it's just the story of my life. I have to film when I have the time to, when it's quiet enough out here, when my neighbors aren't mowing the lawn, when the weather's nice enough. So this is the time I have to film, and so you're probably just gonna hear a couple mommies. Okay, moving on from strawberries. Next up, we are going to be talking about one of my favorites. Do you know what this is? This is a sunchoke, also referred to commonly as a Jerusalem artichoke. So I love sunchokes. I think they're a really cool plant to incorporate into your garden with a couple of caveats. So sunchokes are extremely aggressive. They're not invasive where I live, but they are extremely aggressive. And there is a difference between those two things. I'll show you in a second where I have most of mine. I only have one spot in my yard where I have sunchokes in the ground, and that is because I highly recommend that unless you want sunchokes forever and you are very sure where you want to plant them, that you do not put them in the ground. I was not sure the first and second year exactly where I wanted to put them, so I waited. And then last fall, I finally decided to put some along my fence line. Sunchokes do well in full sun or part sun. In this area, get some afternoon sun. It's like a little strip along a fence, so it'll be perfect for something that is super hardy and that I don't really have to do much with, like sunchokes. I don't even think I watered my containerized sunchokes last year. I definitely didn't water the ones I had in the ground. I just let Mother Nature take its course. I didn't amend the soil in the ground. Like, these are just super hardy plants. And what you will see is you will see vegetative growth pop up like this, but this is not why we're growing the plants if you're growing it to eat it. What we're growing the plant for are the tubers that are underground. So a lot like potatoes. They have kind of like a nutty, potatoey flavor to them. You harvest them at the end of the season after the foliage has died back. And this is a relative of a sunflower. So it gets really tall and it flowers during the summer. So it's not just planting something that you can harvest for food. It also looks really nice. So when I have them in containers, I find that it's nice to like kind of Chelsea chop them once they get a couple feet tall so that they'll branch out. Otherwise, they can tend to be a little bit floppy unless you have them in like a dense grouping. If you were ever to look up like best survival crops, best things to plant, like if, you know, we lose access to food, sunchokes are always going to be on that list, at least where I live, because they will just survive anything. And even if you want to get rid of them and kill them, it is very difficult to, because as I have found out myself, they will reroot from the tiniest little piece of a tuber or a root that you miss when you leave them in the ground. So incredibly resilient, for better or for worse, depending on what your goals are. Sunchokes, Jerusalem artichokes, definitely recommend checking these out. All right, now we're back in the berry patch because we are going to be talking about raspberries, which are one of my favorites. Raspberries are very easy to grow, maybe even too easy to grow. I have 4 different raspberry plants planted here, but as you can see, we have lots of little babies. Every single little clump you see around here is a new raspberry plant. And that is because raspberry plants spread through runners underneath the surface of the soil. I may even be sitting on a raspberry. Yep, there's one right down here next to me. So they spread very prolifically. So when you plant your raspberries, do not overplant. Just know that if you put in a raspberry plant, it's gonna look empty the first year. The next spring, you're gonna see little babies pop up all over your raspberry area. This is a great one to dig up and share. They transplant very well when they produce babies. So if you need to thin out your patch, if it's too dense, if you've got them popping up in places you don't want them, you just take a little shovel and dig them up and pop them up separately. One thing to keep in mind when you are shopping for raspberries is that there are 2 main types of raspberries. Those are primocane raspberries. So primocane raspberries are going to be raspberries that sprout new growth, like all of these little clusters here, and those will get tall and they will fruit on these first year canes when these turn into canes. These are also called fall-bearing raspberries sometimes because the canes need all year to get large enough and mature enough to fruit. The other type of raspberry you can encounter is a floricane raspberry. And those are raspberries that fruit on canes from last year. So I only have one variety of floricane raspberry in here, and that variety does not fruit on first year canes. So what you have to do is let that vegetative growth pop up and then leave it over the winter. And then the following year, those canes that you left standing will be what produces raspberries for you. So these are canes that grew last year. Now, these kind of like had a rough winter. I didn't stake them, I didn't protect them. So they ended up getting really sad looking and breaking off in a lot of spots. But it is a good thing to have a mixture of floricane and primocane raspberries because they will fruit at different times. Now, to make it a little bit more confusing, floricane raspberries will not produce the first year, okay? But primocane raspberries, ones that produce on that first year growth, if you leave those first year canes up, they will probably give you a second flush of raspberries the following June. So if you want to do that, you can. A lot of people will grow like only first year primocane raspberries, and at the end of the year, they'll just mow down all of the canes and let everything sprout the following year. You will get a smaller harvest the following spring if you leave up those canes another year from your first year raspberries. I hope that makes sense. It can get very confusing. You will get a smaller harvest, but if you really want to get as much as you can out of your plants, that is an option. These are all red raspberries here. I also have 2 types of golden raspberries. They are both first year fruiting raspberries. One of those is Anne variety, which is just a gorgeous, large golden raspberry. We grow it in our master gardener demonstration garden, and after we saw it and my daughter like gobbled them up at one of the classes, yes, you gobbled them up, she said we have to get these for our garden. So I got some and planted them, and then we also planted some, I think they're called fall golds, which I just picked up at Tractor Supply. Those are another golden variety of raspberry, and I have those kind of behind me so that they don't get super mixed in as they're spreading with runners. Now, one note about raspberries, you don't want to plant black raspberries or blackberries. So that's raspberries that are black or dark purple, or blackberries, true blackberries. You don't want to plant them around your red and golden raspberries because blackberries and black raspberries are more susceptible to a viral disease that is spread by aphids. So what will then happen is it can spread throughout your entire patch. So that is why I have my reds and my goldens back here, and then I have my black raspberries and my blackberries in the front yard. Okay, next up we're going to talk about Goumi berries. So I added 2 Goumi berry shrubs up here by our patio last fall. They are native to East Asia. They're super cold hardy. What I like about them is that they are nitrogen fixing shrubs. So they are very popular in the permaculture world for that reason. We have the varieties Sweet Scarlet, and then I have a red gem over there. Now, these can get quite large, so this area looks really empty right now, but hopefully eventually this whole area will be filled up with our nice Goumi shrubs, and they will give us some delicious red berries. And these plants have already pretty much doubled in size from when I initially planted them. I ordered these from a nursery called Cricket Hill Garden. I had a really hard time finding Goumi berries locally, but also online. Lots of places have them, but they were out of stock. Like I said, not much to say about this one so far since it is still so young in our garden, but I am looking forward to giving you guys some updates on these shrubs as they progress. Any video, especially in our zone here in Maryland Zone 7A, would not be complete without a video talking about blueberries. So this is one of my blueberry shrubs. I have this one up in our raised bed area just for some nice little snacking while I'm out gardening. But then we have a whole blueberry patch in the back. We probably have 20 blueberry bushes throughout our whole yard. So the thing to remember about blueberries is that they like full sun and they really like acidic soil. So instead of adding like soil additives or fertilizers, other than what I use for all of my other plants, I just make sure to mulch these every year with fresh mulch or wood chips just to help improve that soil and make them super happy where they are. When you dive into the world of blueberries, you will find that there are lots of different types. So I would recommend checking out your local agricultural extension. Here in Maryland, UMD's Ag Extension website has a list of recommended varieties for Maryland. You don't want to set yourself up for failure by getting something that's just not going to work well where you are. There are also all different sizes of blueberry bushes. So if you get like a rabbit eye type of blueberry, those can get huge, like 10 feet tall. They can also be like really sprawling, have these large arching branches. But then there are also little dwarf blueberry plants. So some can only get like 1 to 2 feet tall. You can put them in pots if you live somewhere where you don't want to put your plants in the ground. Just keep in mind that if you're putting something in a pot, it's going to have a harder time surviving the winter. So pay really close attention to the zones that the blueberries you're buying are appropriate for. So for example, if I wanted to have a blueberry in a pot here in zone 7, I would probably get a type of blueberry that is hardy all the way down to zone 5, because generally you want to give like a 2-zone buffer when something is above ground in a pot over the winter. And that's just because it has a lot less insulation. Being in the ground, you would think, oh, it's the ground in the winter, it's cold, but that actually will help insulate your plant's root system a lot more than being above ground in a pot that can freeze. Next up, we're gonna head to the back of our yard to look at our rhubarb plant. So rhubarb isn't really something that like you're gonna harvest to pick and eat like a lot of the fruits and vegetables that I've shown you so far. But it is a really cool plant, and I love anything that's perennial. I also love that it is an early emerging plant in the spring. So even though it is early April in Maryland Zone 7A, it already looks really lovely. I'll show you guys what it looks like right now here in the back. So this whole area here looks pretty empty because eventually this rhubarb plant will fill in this entire area. You can see it's already looking really beautiful. It's got lots of gorgeous new growth coming off of the inside and some really lovely stems, because keep in mind that when you're growing rhubarb, you're not going to eat the leaves of the plant. So the leaves of the plant are actually toxic to humans. It's those stems that you are growing the plant for. It's the stems that you will harvest and use for things like making rhubarb pie. That's probably the most commonly known use for rhubarb, but there are lots of different things you can make with rhubarb. We are in the back of the yard here where our rhubarb is, and I am walking through what is a freshly mulched path. This area all used to be grass just about a week ago. We've been working really hard on expanding our berry patch out here, and 3 of the newest additions that we put in here in kind of like a triangle pattern are what's called sea buckthorn shrubs. These are also referred to as seaberries. They can get quite tall. They can get like 6 to 10 feet depending on how you're pruning them and how actively you're managing them. I planted them about 5-ish feet apart here in a triangle because I wanted them to grow pretty closely together, and mostly that is because the 2 in the front here are females and the 1 in the back is a male. Sea buckthorn is going to need some sort of pollinator, so you can't just get a self-fertile plant. You need to get female and male plants. So generally what people will do is they will get a bunch of female plants because those are the ones that produce the berries, and then they will get 1 male plant. I think I read when I bought these that 1 male plant, if placed appropriately, can pollinate like 10 female plants, but obviously we don't have room for all of those female plants. So I ended up getting 1 male to put at the top of the triangle and 2 females at the bottom. So another reason why I ordered these is because they are also nitrogen fixing shrubs, but I also love the idea of having our own like unique berries. If you want to buy like sea buckthorn berries or sea berries, you'll quickly find out that like buying the oil from them or buying the berries themselves or the juice from them can be pretty expensive. It's used in a lot of different things, from like cosmetics to supplements and all sorts of stuff, because sea berries are super duper high, super concentrated amounts of vitamin C, as well as lots of other great stuff in them. So I definitely wanted to add something like that to our garden. And they also just look really lovely. I'll see if I can find a picture when they are covered in orange berries through the summer and fall. They are just really, really gorgeous plants. And I also like how the foliage, much like the Goumi berry, kind of has like a little bit of a silver sheen to it, which I think is really pretty. I think the varieties that I got ended up being cultivars that were created in Ukraine and Russia. So it's definitely something that's going to be very, very cold hardy. Be interested to see how it does in our super hot Maryland summers here and super humid Maryland summers. But, you know, it does get really cold here as well. So they are a good choice for something super hardy that will leaf out pretty early in the spring and look great in your garden too. Before I migrate up to the front yard to show you some of the stuff I have up there, I want to show you something that's looking a little sad right now. It was looking much better yesterday, but even though it is April, we had some like crazy low 20-degree temperatures last night. My hardy kiwi vine that has resprouted for the season here is looking extremely sad. It was looking super healthy, but you can see they're like all floppy. They're probably gonna fall off. But so this is still good news, because I was very worried about this kiwi vine making it through its first winter, because it was so freaking tiny when I got it. Like, look how tiny this is. This is a self-fertile hardy kiwi vine. If you've ever like seen the berries, they look like tiny little kiwis, but you eat the whole thing. They don't have like a furry skin. So a lot of people will refer to them as kiwi berries instead of just a hardy kiwi vine. And a lot of times people will have to get a male plant and female plant, much like the sea buckthorns, but they take up a lot of space. So that was just not an option for us where we are. I think my variety I have is the Acai self-pollinating kiwi vine. And obviously with a lot of self-pollinating varieties, you don't get as much of a harvest, but for us, it was still worth it, because again, we just don't want to devote that much space to having two hardy kiwi vines. We're hoping to have like a patio screen here to give us some privacy with our kiwi vine once it really takes off. And I have heard that in their first year, once they really roar back to life, they have a lot of growth. Before we head to the front, I forgot I have one more edible berry back here. Similar to the kiwi vine, is still very young. I planted it last fall. This right here is a goji berry. This one was about 1/3 the size when I got it last fall, and it was a teeny tiny little twig. This one also came from Cricket Hill Garden, the same spot I got the Goumi berries from. So definitely attest to the quality of their plants. I'm extremely happy with everything that I've gotten from them. They can get quite tall, and they have like large sprawling branches. So I planted it here right by the fence to kind of be like an anchor piece. And people grow this for the berries, but it also looks like a really lovely shrub, which is kind of the whole point of edible landscaping, is to have things that look beautiful and that are also practical as well. So definitely looking forward to seeing how this one grows in Maryland Zone 7. I did not realize you could even grow goji berries in our zone before I started doing some research a couple years ago. So I am super pumped to add this one last year. All right, we are now up in the front yard. First up in the front yard, we are going to talk about blackberries. Most of the blackberry varieties that you encounter do not fruit on their first year canes like some raspberries do. They fruit on their second year canes. So these are canes that grew last year that I left in the ground, did not cut down, and I let them overwinter, and now they are sprouting. And these canes right here are what will produce blackberries this year, not the new growth that you see coming from the ground in front of it. Now, there are some newer types of blackberries that fruit on first year canes. I have one coming in the mail to me soon. I'm super excited about it because I'm really interested to see what kind of production they give me my first year. All up and down the path I have up here in the front yard, I've got blackberries or black raspberries on that side planted, because you do want to, if you have enough space, keep these separate from your red raspberries and your golden raspberries. Now, your mileage may vary with that, because my mom has grown blackberries with red raspberries for many years without any issues. But if you can keep them separated, it's generally a good idea just to help prevent disease spread. Another thing to keep in mind with your blackberries is that they do spread pretty prolifically. I find not as prolifically as raspberries. When I put blackberries up here and shared that online, people like lost their minds about me planting blackberries in my front yard. I don't know why. Like, you're gonna plant a shrub, why not plant something that you can get fruit off of? And I have found that as long as you stay on top of them and dig up any babies from any of your berry plants that they sprout from underground runners, you will be fine. You also want to make sure that those second year canes do not tip all the way down to the ground, because if they do get really long, these are pruned down so that they don't tip down and touch the ground. And I don't have these trellised yet, which is something I'm going to be working on this year. If they tip down and touch the ground, they will root and they will sprout other plants. So that could be something that you want to happen, or it could be something that you want to avoid. Just keep it in mind. Over here on the other side of the yard, I have what are pretty much our two feature plants over here. So this is going to be like the anchor shrub over here. This is an American hazelnut, a propagation I got from my cousin Jimmy. Thank you, Jimmy. I'm very excited to have this one here. And then we also added two hardy almond trees. This is the Hall's hardy almond, and this is the one that is a little bit more mature. This one is now taller than me. Yay, very exciting. It's definitely clearing 6 feet. I pruned this one pretty heavily this spring for airflow because hardy almond trees are grafted onto peach rootstock, so you can see the graft point here. It's not my favorite graft. It's a little bit wonky, but it's just a really pretty ornamental tree in addition to producing almonds. And then we also have a sweet almond, all-in-one almond tree on the other side of the yard, which isn't really worth showing right now because I just put it in. These trees are kind of expensive, so we decided to put in one last year when we converted this whole area to gardens, and then we put in the other one about 2 weeks ago. So this one is more of a bitter almond, and then the all-in-one almond that we just put in is more of a fresh eating almond. So super excited to have these to just be gorgeous, productive trees. So this is kind of our nut zone up here. And in addition to being the nut zone, we also have all of our currants up here. So currants in our weather are like kind of dicey because we get super humid summers and they can get really, really hot. So although they like full day sun, they don't really do well with our super duper hot afternoon sun here. So what I decided to do was put all of my currants. I have now 6 currant plants, 2 black currants, 2 red currants, a white currant, and a pink currant. I really like currants. I think they're super underrated and pretty easy to grow. We ended up putting all of our currants up here because this area will get full morning sun, but then as the sun goes over behind the house, we will be dealing with less direct, like scorching sun on them. So they'll have a little bit of afternoon shade to be a little bit cooler in the afternoon. You also want to make sure you're pruning your currants to maximize the airflow. I want to keep them pretty small up here because they don't have a ton of room, and currants, you can prune them to keep them pretty small. You can see this black currant here is already getting some cute little blooms. Then we have some other currants that are not nearly as mature because we added most of those either last fall or just a couple weeks ago when they came in the mail. I waited for quite a while to get my pink and my white currants. I ordered those last year and they just ended up coming, but we are hoping to get black currants from our black currants up here this year. And while I was up front talking about those currants, I realized I completely forgot to show you guys the gooseberries. So gooseberries are another I think underrated thing to grow around here. A lot of people don't like growing them because they have thorns on them. My neighbor across the street actually grows gooseberries. One of our plants came from a start from hers, and then we have 2 other varieties. I have them written down somewhere. I don't even remember what they are, but they're ones that are supposed to be better for fresh eating. Some people grow gooseberries and they grow them more for like baking and stuff like that, but we are growing them mostly for fresh eating and for preserving. I'm not much of a baker, but if I end up to my eyeballs in berries, you better believe I will learn how to be a baker. Here is the prettiest gooseberry we have. It is getting lots of lovely blooms on it. You might be able to see those thorns. So definitely not the easiest to pick, but a really nice shrub-like form. These will get quite tall, so they may need trellised, but probably not this year, maybe not even next year, especially for the little ones. Other types of berries that I'm not even going to really talk about today just because we're not really growing them for the berries for us. We are growing a serviceberry. It's a standing ovation serviceberry, and we also have several elderberry trees. We do not really use elderberry for much, and I've actually never tasted a serviceberry. A lot of people that I talk to about serviceberries tell me that the birds get their serviceberries before they're able to harvest them anyway. Our serviceberry is like right next to me, sitting on this stool here. So that little guy right there, and we're not going to talk too much about elderberry, but that is a native shrub where we are, so I definitely wanted to add some elderberry to our yard. We're also not really going to talk about fruit trees because that's like its own thing. Right behind me is a peach tree, and there's a giant tarp because, as I mentioned, it got down into the 20s last night, so I decided to cover the peach tree because it's covered in blossoms right now, and this will probably be our first year getting a good amount of peaches from this tree. Back here we've also got 2 pawpaws, a persimmon, a redbud tree, and then we've got over here next to the sea buckthorns, we've got 2 plum trees and then 3 columnar apple trees I added. And these look so silly because they are planted like in a little triangle pattern, and I can already see the comment in my head of someone saying those apple trees are too close to each other. Well, guess what? I think they look too close to each other too, but columnar apple trees grow tall and skinny, so they are able to be planted about 2 to 3 feet away from one another. All right, that about wraps up everything that I had in my head that I wanted to show you guys. I'm sure that I'm forgetting something, and I'm going to turn this off and go inside and remember that I forgot something, but I will definitely be doing another tour of my perennial fruit trees and bushes and the few perennial vegetables that we have to show you guys how everything is looking as it finishes waking up for the season and starts producing. So until then, if you want to add some unique fruits or vegetables to your garden that will come back year after year, spring is a great time for planting. So I hope you guys found something inspiring, and until my next video, happy planting.